Hey, this is Brian again with another tribute to my grandpa, and this episode is one of the storytelling sessions. I'm dedicating this to all the great grandchildren. My grandpa passed away this year, and he left a really cool legacy and a lot of good people that loved him. I know that when some people get really old, little great grandkids don't always like to see super old people, but my kids did, and I'm really appreciative that my girls, my little boy, he's small enough that nothing scares him, but just grateful that they had a good relationship and they know who great grandpa was. And so for those great grandchildren out there, I want you to listen to these stories. They're a lot of fun, and I hope that your parents or your grandparents will look into getting one of these books for you. They're kind of fun. And what my grandpa did, if you have not been paying attention to this series, which it's okay if you haven't, but my grandpa, when we were young, to my sister, he recorded reading a number of books. He bought the book, and then he put a little cassette tape and hit record, and then he read the book to my sister. Myself and my sister, we both benefited from what my grandpa did, so we got to hear these stories too. And I remember seeing in my older sister's room, which is both my sister's room, my sister on her bed with a tape recorder. I'm seeing that. I see that in my remembrances of being a little kid, and I don't have a lot of them. So these mattered. These mattered to us, and is one of the things that became part of my memories. And I'm so grateful that we have these tapes, and my grandpa did this. So without further ado, here are two more stories my grandpa reads. If you want to get these books, you can find them on Amazon. If you want the actual recording of just my grandpa saying this, please comment below and I'll get you the MP3s so you can use them as you'd like. I hope that family will look into that, and if you don't, that's okay. Hope you just enjoy the stories here. They're kind of fun. And the two stories that my grandpa reads are a tiger story and another one about Todd and Copper, which is the fox and the hound. And so I hope you'll enjoy my grandpa and his loving nature, how he reads and how he expresses his feelings while he's reading something. I love that about my grandpa. So enjoy these stories, and I'll see you next week.
Shall we read the story called Timmy Tiger to the Rescue? Okay, let's look at the book here. There's Timmy Tiger, and he's running. I guess he's going to rescue somebody. Let's open the book and find out what he's going to do. Timmy Tiger and his brother Tommy started into the jungle to play hide and seek. Don't go too far, their mother warned. The jungle is big and sometimes there is danger there. Turn the page. Oh, we'll be careful, said Tommy. Come on, Timmy, I'll be it first. Timmy hid in some bushes. Tommy counted to 10, then looked for Timmy. He caught him before he could touch home base. Now you're it, said Tommy. It's my turn to hide. Cover your eyes. While Tommy covered his eyes with his paws and counted, Tommy ran to hide. He ran far into the jungle. Oh, he shouldn't have run so far. That monkey knows, doesn't he? Turn the page. Ready or not, here I come, cried Timmy. He looked in the bushes. Tommy wasn't there. He looked behind the big tree. Tommy wasn't there either. Look at that snake. Wonder if that snake knows where Tommy is. Turn the page. He ran in a big circle, calling, Tommy, Tommy. He ran faster and called louder, Tommy, Tommy, where are you? Oh, look at that funny-looking bird and the monkey. Finally, he heard a small cry. It seemed to come from down in the ground. Timmy called back, where are you? Over here, came a faint voice. Over here in the ground. Timmy ran in the direction Tommy's voice came from. Suddenly he came to a deep hole. He looked down at his brother. Is that his brother's eyes down in the bottom of that hole? Oh, I wonder what happened. Turn the page. Help, cried Tommy. I fell in this hole. We've disobeyed our mother. We've run too far. Now we're in trouble. That's not just a hole, said Timmy. That's a trap. Don't you remember Mother telling us about the traps that men set to catch animals for the zoos? Yes, I remember, said Tommy, but I didn't see it. It looked like a patch of grass. Then when I ran across it to hide, it fell in, and here I am. That's because it is built to look like grass, answered Timmy. It's only cut grass laid over sticks, and the sticks laid over a big hole. That is one of the dangers of the jungle that Mother spoke about. But what will I do? Cried Tommy. Who will get me out? I'll think of something, said Timmy, looking down into the hole. I'll find some way to get you out. But Timmy had no time to think. As he turned, 2 men came out of the bushes. Timmy hid behind a tree. The men looked down into the hole. Oh, isn't that a deep hole? Oh, how'd you like to fall into a hole like that? Let's turn the page and see what those 2 men do to Timmy. No, that's Tommy, isn't it? Okay, turn the page. We got one, cried one of the men. Yes, replied the man carrying a cage. Let's get him in this. He dropped a net into the hole. The men scooped up Tommy. Then the men dumped Tommy into the cage. They tied the top with a heavy cord. They fastened the cage to 2 poles. Then they raised the pole to their shoulders and started walking. Look at that poor Tommy Tiger in that cage. Isn't that sad? Turn the page. Timmy watched the swinging cage out of sight. His heart pounded. He had to do something. He couldn't let them take his brother. Slowly he crept from his hiding place. He padded down the trail behind the men. When they stopped, he stopped. When they walked, he walked. He walked and walked. He had never been so far from home. He hurried after Tommy. The men came to a small river. There was a log across the water. The men stepped carefully along the log, the cage swinging between them. As the men reached the opposite bank, Timmy in his hurry stepped on a stick. The stick snapped. At the sound the men turned. Timmy had 1 foot on the log. The men let down the cage and ran back toward Timmy. Oh, they want to catch him too, don't they? He better get out of there. Turn the page. There's another one, they yelled. Maybe we can catch him. Timmy fled. He ran this way and that way through the tall grass. He could hear the men coming closer and closer. I can't outrun them. I must do something else, thought Timmy, while his heart pounded with fright. Then he saw a tree ahead. It was an old tree with heavy, thick branches. Quickly Timmy ran round the tree until it hid him from the men. Then he began to climb. But his claws slipped and he knocked some bark to the ground. It fell softly in the grass. Timmy let out his breath in relief. He knew if the men had heard the bark falling, they would have found him. Turn the page. Carefully now he worked his way into the tall, heavy branches, thick with green leaves. He flattened himself along a limb and didn't move. He watched the men search the grass. They looked toward the tree. Timmy held his breath. Then one of them said, He's given us the slip. Let's go back. Timmy stayed in his tree a long time. Then he carefully crawled down and took up the trail again. This time he kept out of sight. Finally he saw the men stop. Timmy hid behind some bushes. The men opened a gate in a high fence made of posts. Timmy watched the men go inside with the cage. The gate closed. Oh, isn't he sad? Turn the page. Timmy hid behind the bushes, not knowing what to do. He heard wild cries inside the fence. He heard a baboon shriek. Timmy flattened to the ground. What if he were discovered? Some birds squawked. Timmy pulled himself into a small ball and tried to hide further in the bushes. Then he heard the wild trumpeting of elephants. The hair on Timmy's neck stood straight up at the terrible sound inside the fence. The sounds almost sent him running home, but he couldn't leave Tommy. When it became quiet behind the fence, Timmy cheerfully crawled out. He crept to the gate and worked his way around the fence until he found a peephole. He peeked in. His eyes grew wide. There were cages everywhere. Some held animals, some held birds, and some were empty. Behind one row of cages, 2 elephants stood swinging their trunks back and forth. Timmy shook. Ooh. Turn the page. Then Timmy saw the small cage that held Tommy. It rested on top of 2 other cages. In the cage beneath Tommy was a fierce-looking cat. It was an Indian fishing cat. Beneath the cat was a mongoose. Timmy lay crouched in his cage. Timmy knew his brother was frightened. Do you know what a mongoose looks like? That's the one in the bottom cage there. Isn't that a funny-looking animal? That's a mean-looking old cat, isn't it? Timmy looked at his brother again and knew what he must do. He crawled around the fence until he found a place where the dirt was soft and loose. He began to dig the dirt out with his paws. When he had made a hole big enough for his body, he lay down to rest. He wondered if he would have the courage to finish his plan. Oh, he looks all tired, doesn't he? Turn the page. He waited until it was almost dark before he squirmed through the hole. Inside the fence he stood for a moment. The caged animals were quiet. On shaking legs he took a step toward Tommy. Then he took another step and another. His legs shook harder, but still the animals and birds made no noise. Finally he reached the 3 cages where Tommy was. He climbed the mongoose's cage. Nothing happened. He reached up for a foothold on the cat's cage. The big cat bit his paw. Timmy jumped to the ground in pain. He tried again. Again the cat bit him. Timmy backed down and looked up at Tommy. Oh, that mean old cat. Doesn't that make you mad? Turn the page. Then Timmy crouched, made a leap, and landed on top of Tommy's cage. Quickly he began chewing the strong cord that held the top. As he chewed, his eyes searched for the man. If they caught him, he didn't know what he would do. He chewed as fast as he could. He clawed at the cord. His tail hung down over the edge of the cat's cage. Timmy had almost chewed through the cord when it happened. Oh, I was afraid that was going to happen. The fishing cat grabbed Timmy's tail. It bit hard and didn't let go. Timmy screamed in pain and surprise. He jumped to the ground, pulling Tommy's cage with him. The cage broke open. The cat's cage fell to the ground. It broke open too. When it fell, the cat let go of Timmy's tail. Turn the page. The noise awakened the birds. They squawked. They awoke the baboon. He shrieked. He awoke the elephants. They trumpeted. They awoke the men. They came yelling through the gate. Quick, cried Timmy to his brother. This way. Timmy pushed Tommy through the hole. Then he squirmed through after him. Inside the fence the noise grew. Men shouted. Animals roared. Birds squawked. But Timmy and Tommy got out of the hole, didn't they? Look at that. Turn the page. The last Timmy and Tommy heard as they ran into the jungle was the glad cry of the fishing cat as it ran into the forest. When they reached the thick grass, Tommy said, If you hadn't come, I don't know what I would have done. Oh, you'd have thought of something, answered Timmy. But let's not disobey Mother again. Let's play closer to home. I agree, panted Tommy. There's danger in the jungle. The 2 small tigers raced with all their strength along the trail toward home and their mother. The end. Boy, those 2 little tigers are going to obey their mother the next time, aren't they? How about you? Are you going to obey your mother when she says not to do something? Are you going to not do it? That's what you should do. Good night. Let's read the story of Todd and Copper. Do you have the book? That's the book with a fox and a dog and a turtle. Which one of them is Todd and which one is Copper? Let's open up the book and find out. Oh, lots of animals in this book, aren't there? An owl and a fox and dogs, 2 or 3 dogs, huh? Birds. Turn the page. Well, that's just a picture of the farm where Todd and Copper live, I guess. Turn the page. One spring morning, Big Mama the owl sat watching the world. She saw a mother fox run out of the woods. The fox raced across the field. Near the fence, she dropped something in the grass. Then the fox ran back into the woods. Now, what is that she dropped in the grass? Let's turn the page and find out. Suddenly, Big Mama heard a gunshot. The mother fox did not return. Oh dear, said Big Mama. Maybe a hunter killed that poor fox. Big Mama wanted to see what the fox had dropped. She flew down to the fence. There was a baby fox. Oh my, said Big Mama. We will have to find a home for you. Turn the page and let's see where they find a home. Big Mama called her friends over to see the fox. I think we need Mrs. Tweed's help, she said. Mrs. Tweed owned a farm nearby. Right now she was in the barn milking a cow. Do you know how they milk a cow? That's what she's doing. And there's a chicken watching her, the little baby chicks. Mrs. Tweed heard a lot of noise outside. She ran out to see what was the matter. Some birds were making a fuss by the fence. I'm coming, called Mrs. Tweed. You think those birds are going to talk to that lady? Let's turn the page. Mrs. Tweed found the baby fox. She took it home with her. She named the little fox Todd. Mrs. Tweed took care of him. Every day, Todd played with the farm animals. One day, Todd followed a butterfly. Look at that. He plays with the cow, and he plays with the hen with her little chicks. He plays with everybody, doesn't he? Turn the page. He followed the butterfly right into the woods. In the woods, Todd found an old cabin. The cabin belonged to a hunter named Amos Slade. Amos had an old dog named Chief and a new hound pup named Copper. Chief was a hunting dog. Copper was going to be a hunting dog too. Chief was a fine hunter when he was awake. Copper had a good sense of smell. Today he smelled something different. Uh-oh, what did he smell that's different? Turn the page. Copper went to see what the new smell was. His nose led him straight to a hollow log. At the end of the log, he saw Todd, the little fox. What are you doing? Asked Todd. Tracking something, said Copper. What are you tracking? Todd asked. I think it's you, said Copper. The little fox began to laugh. The puppy laughed too. By the time they finished laughing, Todd and Copper were friends. Turn the page. Todd and Copper played together every day. They did not know that foxes and hounds were not supposed to be friends. Look at that. They're swimming in the lake and running around in the fields. Amos Slade did not know who Copper played with, but one day he tied Copper up. "I don't want you running around," Amos told the puppy. "Good hunting dogs stay put." Oh, doesn't he look sad? All tied up there. Turn the page. Todd came to see his friend. "I can't play with you anymore," said Copper. "I have to stay here." "Who is that big dog?" asked Todd. "Be careful," said Copper. "That's Chief. Don't wake him up." But Chief was already awake. He opened one eye and saw the little fox. The old dog growled. Todd was scared. He raced off as fast as he could. Turn the page. He ran into the hen house. The hens were afraid of him. They jumped up and squawked. Squawk, squawk, squawk. Look at 'em. Ooh! Their feathers are flying every direction. Todd got out of the hen house fast. Look at that big old chicken chasing him. Amos Slade heard the hens squawking. He came out of his cabin and saw the fox. Oh, he's got a gun. Turn the page. "Stay away from my chickens," yelled Amos. "If I see you again, you'll be sorry." Summer ended and fall came. It was time for Amos to teach Copper how to hunt. "We are going on a long hunting trip," Amos told Copper and Chief. He loaded up his truck. The dogs were both excited. Turn the page. Let's see where they go. Copper sat in the back of the truck. He saw his friend Todd by the road, and Todd saw his friend Copper going away. Both Todd and Copper felt sad. They would miss each other. A lonely Todd went to see Big Mama. "When Copper comes back next spring," she said, "he won't be your friend anymore." "That's not true," said Todd. "Copper and I will always be friends." Turn the page. All winter, Amos taught Copper to be a hunting dog just like Chief. At first it was hard work, but by the end of winter, Copper knew how to hunt. Copper was even smarter and faster than Chief. "Now I have 2 good hunting dogs," Amos said proudly. Oh, Copper's growing up too, isn't he? Turn the page. Amos, Chief, and Copper came home in the spring. Copper felt very important. He was a big dog now with a big job. A few days later, Todd came to visit. Chief was sleeping as usual. "Hi, Copper," said Todd. "You have really grown." "Yes, Todd," said Copper. "So have you." Turn the page. Chief was having an exciting dream. It was a dream about foxes. In the dream, Chief heard some voices. Slowly he opened one eye, and there was a real fox. Todd and Copper did not know that Chief was waking up. "Are we still friends?" asked Todd. "We can't be friends any more," said Copper. "I'm a hunting dog now." Turn the page. All at once Chief leaped at Todd. The big dog growled and barked. "Run, Todd, run!" Copper shouted. Amos Slade dashed out of his cabin. "There's that fox again," he cried. "This time he won't get away." Oh, that guy's got that gun in his hand. Watch out. Turn the page. Amos quickly untied the dogs. They both started chasing the fox. Todd knew he was in terrible danger. He ran for his life. Through the woods, across the fields, up a cliff, Todd ran and ran. He looked behind him. The dogs were still following. Oh, he's scared, isn't he? Turn the page. Finally, Todd was too tired to run any more. He hid under a stack of boards. It was a good hiding place. Chief went right by. But Copper had a good nose. He came along, sniffing the ground. His nose led him straight to Todd. Todd was trapped. He had no place to go. Oh, turn the page. Copper heard Amos climbing up the cliff. "I don't want you to be killed, Todd," said Copper. "I will let you go." Amos caught up with Copper. "Which way did he go, boy?" asked Amos. Copper pretended to sniff. Then Copper led Amos away from Todd's hiding place. So Copper was still his friend, wasn't he? Turn the page. Soon Amos and the dogs were gone. Todd crawled out of his hole and ran for home. Now he knew what hunting dogs did. They hunted foxes. Todd found Mrs. Tweed at the fence. "Someone has been chasing you," she said. She hugged the fox. "I'm glad you are safe," she told him. Turn the page. That night, Todd thought about his friend Copper, and Copper thought about his friend Todd. They both knew that they could never play together again, but Todd knew that he loved Copper, and Copper knew that he loved Todd. That would never change. The end. Wasn't that a nice story? And you know that Grandpa will always love you. And Grandpa knows that you will always love Grandpa. Bye-bye.